2, 3.
This is part 2. We're recording now.
Okay. Oh, hey! I don't get the Bible with Delaney and Shawn, and we are in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, part 2.
Part 2. We are ending on, it's actually just a wrap up of it. We are on verse 19, and it's a really critical verse that you've taught on recently. So, or you associated it in your verse by verse. So, verse 19, though I am free, I belong to no one. I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. I'm going to read this whole paragraph. To the Jews, I become like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I become like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I became weak, to win the weak. I've become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I might share in its blessings.
Isn't that radical?
It's unreal.
Yep.
And it's one that's like, not, again, to be personal, it's like so deeply affected me for a long time. I think about this set of verses for the past several years, and I think it drove me crazy, because I think like there's a way to see that as like a law, like to become, like I have taken that as law for a long time, to become things to people as a loving act or something, so you might win all of them. But it's like, that is far off. That is not, that he's just trying to discount the law by saying he'll do all of this stuff, would you say?
To a Jew reading it or hearing it, yeah. But you are following the law of Christ and trying to become like other people in order to influence them. The law of Christ is love. He admits, I'm under that law. That's what allows me to go out and be free in all these different expressions, because I'm following the law of love. Why do we call it a law? Because Christ taught, if you love me, keep my commandments. And this is my commandment, that you love one another. So you are submitting your heart under the governance of his love. And so when you meet different people, you do what Paul just says. So I don't think that is wrong.
But would you say that love, that's specifically how, I feel like this is a segment of what love could be, but this isn't the definition of law. It sounds like you're saying love, Christ's law, which is love, looks like that. And like sometimes it looks like not becoming something. Yeah,
and I'm just saying that is one expression. He says, I can do this because I operate from Christ's law. And that's why there's other places where Paul will throw down on people. I mean, he'll call them like very rude names and associate very rude terms to their person. So, but he's operating out of love. So
I think I mean, on the personal note, I was really zoomed in on this specifically, but he, over the next chapter at least, almost like debunks that and gets to something different than that at the end of that chapter. So it can't be that you're just always becoming everything to everyone, because in a way that's just making them feel better about themselves, and that's not always what love is. You don't want, like, how do you approach that in your life?
I go to their level. I don't embrace their lifestyle, but I go to their level of understanding, and I speak to them on that level.
Oh, that's how you become all things to people, is going to their level.
Yeah, and if their level is, I am a heroin addict that is sitting in McDonald's strung out, I'll sit there and I just, we'll talk to them at that level.
Okay.
I won't be like, have you considered you become all things to all people, but in love. Yeah, okay. At their level. A child, the child's level.
Okay. Would you say that you become, okay, you don't embrace other perspectives in in or like practice other. You like embrace all perspectives. I'm having a hard time wording this. Like you don't become another person's set of rules that they live by.
No, but I will honor those rules. Like we went to a church the other day when Mallory got her 1 year, and they stood up to do something. I stood up.
Oh,
You know.
okay.
I don't know. I wouldn't stand up normal.
Okay.
You know, but I don't want to be the guy who's like, yeah. You know.
I'm not.
There's no purpose in that.
Okay. So you're pretty sure that agape love, that's when it's defined, that is how it looks. You do things that are against your own integrity.
That's selfless.
Okay. Integrity you think is selfish.
Well, integrity is selfish if you impose that integrity on another person's conscience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My integrity is not selfish or self-indulgent if I follow it myself.
Yeah.
But when you start to impose it, then yeah.
And that, but then I'm so black and white, but then there are times where like you'll want to encourage your kid to like be different and not do that thing that everyone's doing.
Yeah.
Because it will encourage strength in them. Mm-hmm. Like, and what you're doing by standing up is also strength. So it seems like the common denominator for love is internal. Like it's an
motive.
internal thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's always going to be motive because God judges the heart. Okay? So you know your motive. You answer to him. So if other people don't understand it and you're doing your best to try to, you don't have to worry. Mm-hmm. And I don't worry when people misunderstand the motives. It gets tiring because they always want to think the worst in this world of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, they do.
But if you know your heart has integrity before God and your actions are based in trying to reach them for what you see as better for them in their life, I'll do whatever.
And we've had like big discussions about that where it's like the thing you'll do, or I've criticized you before incorrectly, but I've criticized you for doing something that you know is loving, but to them comes off so not loving.
Sure.
So
I do it every
like,
week.
Yeah, it's true. And like you would say that's not like a preference. That's like how love is categorized by Christ.
That's how I interpret it, and I'm responsible for my interpretation of it.
Okay.
We talked about, when you and I did the interview, you talked about how I will give people like a Herculean task right out the gate.
Yeah.
And some people say, that is so, I mean, the scripture says, first this and then that and this.
Yeah.
But our world is different, and I wouldn't do that to someone who has a learning deficiency. But if someone's capable and they claim to want something, I'll give it to them.
Yeah.
And I'm only operating off what I know and what I think is best. And that's why I can be wrong, because I've made so many mistakes, and I've offended people, and I haven't intended to, but I can see when I do it wrongly, and I've learned. I used to do it wrongly all the time.
Okay. So I don't want to, I feel bad maybe expanding on this too much, but I think this is such an important topic. So I recently had a discussion or maybe an argument where I was bothered by the effect of someone who had the right intentions toward me, and the right intention manifested in a way that I didn't want. I wanted it to be something else, and the something else that I think would more properly match their intention is how I would read them being more loving, which is what I know their intention is. So like how would you approach relationships in that way? Just any kind of relationship, friendships and stuff. Like, do you understand that circumstance?
Yeah. I mean, you got to know the person who's speaking. Relationships take time. So there's a period where you work through learning how people are, and then you'll come to like this point where, oh, okay, that's how he or she is.
Yeah.
And that's how they speak, and that's how they think. So they don't mean bad. And you learn that, and then you can accept it. But right out the gate, it's hard.
But in that circumstance with people, like, is there a general approach, like a rule of thumb on the definition of love that you've come to understand, where it's like you understand their intentions, and when you're in like a long lasting friendship with this person or whatever dynamic, you want the intentions to be different. Like, what is loving there? Like, their intentions aren't coming out how they should. But
so you want the delivery of their intentions to improve, or their intentions to improve?
No, the intentions are good. The delivery's off.
Oh, that's just time. And that's allowing people to be who they are.
Yeah.
Paul will talk about it, that love is not easily provoked. So on your end, as the recipient of advice from someone who means well, you got to give them enough rope to kind of be who they are, because you want to be who you are, and to say things wrongly and to not attack initially.
Yeah.
If they do it over and over again and it's a problem, then you can communicate why it's a problem.
So like love and like allowing, I feel like love and what you've found is a lot about liberty. So it's like allowing other people to be what they are.
Fully.
And so there's, even you and I, we've had a sort of argument recently where like there was trouble with me. There was an assumption, I don't know what it was, but like there's an assumption. I'm not assuming your intentions are as good as they are in that moment. I don't know. There's something I think I'm questioning, like why or how much we can or can't comment on the way someone's intentions are delivered in life, to any degree of how much you know them, a stranger or a...
I don't know. That is like, Delaney, I think that's like almost an impossible situation to really have a concrete black and white answer, because we know people at different levels. A stranger is going to be one way. It'll affect us one way. A person that's sort of close to us, our family, our spouse, our children.
But the approach is to, like, love is to approach that person trying to understand their intentions first. Like, that's the goal. Patience. That's the first step of love. Yeah. Okay, patience. Yeah. That's what patience is. Yeah. Is understanding they could be intending something that I'm not. Yeah. These are such basic things, but they're also really heavy. You
know what I do, which is really terrible to say on a recorded program, but I keep a file in my head that's running with people. So every time I meet them, talk to them, if they get a ding in that file on the card, check. Like they say, have you gained weight? I make a check.
Yeah.
And then the next time, if they say something else that's derogatory in a similar way or the same, I'll make another check. And then the third time or fourth time, I'll say, you know, this is the fourth time you've mentioned that. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I see.
You see, because then they're showing they have something that, I didn't, I was just an offhand. No, you've said it 4 times. Then they put it on you and say, you're crazy, you know. Yeah. But I just listen. If you listen to people, you'll get to know them, and it really helps with loving them better.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you check what the positive things that they're saying to you?
Yeah, I check out. I try to keep a running file on everything they say in context. Mm-hmm. So that's how you get to know people. That's why I like to ask people questions, because what they say reveals themselves to me. And then as you get to know them, you remember what they said they're about, and then you watch if they are about that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not judging, it's just assessing people. Why? Because I care. Yeah. And I want to know how to relate to them best. You don't do that in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So listening really closely to what people say. Now it gets you in a lot of trouble, because a lot of people don't realize that that's what you're doing. You know, you're really listening to them and everything they've said, and you're making an account of it in your head, not to trap them, but to know them.
Well, I find it odd that people aren't doing that.
Well, maybe they do. Do you do it?
I don't think I do it so methodically, but yes, like I hyper evaluating everyone, probably and I'm trying very consciously actually to approach it that way, where I give it a few times. I'm trying to get there, but I definitely am asking questions and paying attention from the get of meeting people.
Yeah.
And of what they are and say that they are in comparison to how it plays out in their life. But like, people don't do that. A lot of people don't. A lot of people around me don't. And if they do, they don't really care to like do anything about it, about the conclusions that they've come to with certain people.
Well, then they just don't care about that person.
Yeah.
Like if I hear
like that.
someone say something that's derogatory to their own person, I'm so ugly, I'm so fat, and I hear that a couple times, I want to remember that so I can encourage them. You look good today. You want to use those things to lift, not to bring them down. Now, I guess there's people who do both.
Well, there's people who just claim, it's the age-old issue that I think you encounter, and maybe I to some degree encounter, where it's like you just care more, and like these people can be like best friends with someone and hear the way that they're like their whole life and not feel the need to respond to it. They're just like a person, and there's no
they don't care
critical step happening. So
the other thing about that, not that this pertains to you necessarily, but you are still at dating range of life, is that's what you do with other when you meet people, is you do the file and you start stacking things up. That's the problem with sexual relations too early, because it introduces a cloud that stops that reasoning and that listening and turns it into emotions and feelings, and you turn that off. And so that's how you get beguiled and you get tricked.
Yeah.
Or you lose out on connecting to somebody who's good. Either way,
that makes sense.
So that's why God, he says, restrict that act for the person you marry, because you're going to need those emotional connections, because you're going to really get mad at them.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, God knows what he's doing.
Wow. Yeah, you think it's like a magical spell or something.
It's a spell that people love to be in because it ignores the realities of the human condition. We are messed up. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to say anything about that set of verses that you find
I want to
really
say
important?
that relative to religionists today, that is really liberating, because what they'll say is, you're hanging out with them? Wait, you do that? Wait, you're involved in going to Vegas to see shows. I don't know. I would never go to Vegas to see a show. Let's say there's someone who does, and they're a believer. They can do that. Yeah, I go with a group of my friends. None of them are believers. Really? Isn't that rubbing off on you? No. I know what I believe. In religion, you want to get rid of that. You want to be insular, and so you get rid of all that because they want to control. So that's the only thing I would say.
Okay, you just brought it up in your verse by verse. But
yeah, because
Leviticus.
We were talking about, I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was something.
It was about the 5 concepts of...
Oh, Sabbath day?
Or 7 concepts, yeah. And just Leviticus.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and it was about the Jews going to the temple on the Sabbath day, and how Paul says, hey, I'll go to the temple on the Sabbath day with them. Just like I'll stand up in a church, and if they really want me to do this, I'll do it.
It's like...
Yeah. It's respectful, but it doesn't mean that you believe that. It's not hypocritical either, because God looks at your heart. Now, if I was like, yeah, man, and then I went and spoke against it, that would be hypocritical.
But that's what is happening. We speak against it, and then we go and do it.
No, if I was like, yeah, man, this is great. If I just go along with it, then what you say is, yeah, I showed up. They all are doing that. I will do that. I don't need to make a stance on my personal view of this. You know? Yeah.
So being hypocritical is,
speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah. So the issue there isn't your intention, which you said, which it's, sorry. It's like putting value on that would be hypocritical when it you don't put value on it in other places, sort of thing. Or thinking you're someone because of it, and then thinking someone is, okay.
So like, just to give you an example, Peter in Acts, he was eating with all the Gentiles, the food that they ate, because he had the experience where a net was let down, and he was doing that. And then when the Jews showed up, he pulled back and acted like he wouldn't do that. He only sat with the Jews. And that's when Paul called him out.
Wow.
Yeah. And Paul called Peter out. He said, what are you doing? You know, you eat with them and now that these Jews come in, you want to suddenly act like, that's hypocrisy.
So, yeah, those words weren't spoken by Jesus, were they?
What?
Like, become all things to all people.
Oh, did he say anything relative to that? No, but you can see that he would do that in whatever the situation was.
He did that.
He did it. Yeah. But he didn't say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It really is an insane paragraph. I think it's one of the most unreal paragraphs that I've read so far. Yeah.
And it shows you his autonomy. You know, I'll do whatever so that I can.
Under the law or not under the law, or weak, or.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who they will never have a drink if they're offered a drink. It's somebody's wedding. It's one little bit of champagne. No. That's religion. Jesus and Paul would have been like, cheers. Because it's not what goes in the body, it's what comes out from the heart.
Yeah, it is like, it has to be that it comes from the other part of Jesus' example. That is that he would never back down from the truth.
No.
So that's, I think, where, because instinctually, that is very weird to say, become a Jew, that does not feel right. And I get why it's very common to not act that way and to look down on people that are having the drink or something. But Jesus did both, but in certain categories of his life, right?
Yeah. Circumstances.
So it's truth is spoken, but actions. Would you categorize it by actions? Like his actions?
I would say that he always acted in love.
Yeah.
And
because you're saying, like, it's not, sorry, I'm trying to identify how Jesus became things to all people. And it was, would you say it's in the way that you tried to do it, which is in meeting them at their level? Or in actual action, he did certain practices or something that the way...
Both.
But he did both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like there were times when we don't talk about these much, but he's rude. He's flat out rude. And he's sarcastic too. And people are like, what?
That's wild.
Yeah. In fact, I've misinterpreted this, but Grady pointed this out the other day when we were talking, that in Matthew, I think it's Matthew, when Jesus is just starting to call his apostles, Philip runs to a guy named Nathanael and says, we found the Messiah, come and see. And Nathanael says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? I think it was Nazareth or Galilee, one of the two. And so when Jesus sees him, he says, Nathanael, a man without guile. And I used to think that he was saying he's an Israelite indeed. He said, Nathanael, an Israelite indeed. He has no guile, but he was full of guile.
Oh my God.
And he straight up called him out for what he had said outside of the earshot of Jesus, but he calls him out to show your heart is, I know what your heart is. Yeah. And if you don't pay attention to that, you'll skip and say, yeah, he's complimenting him for being devout. No. He would, radical.
Wow.
he told the Syrophoenician woman, leave, the crumbs aren't even for the dogs. And then she showed her heart for him, and he said, I haven't seen so great a faith in all of Israel.
Wow.
But man, and we all picture him in these certain ways. Right.
We're over time.
All right.
But there's a few verses left of 9, so let me just read it.
All right.
Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air.
I'm not an air boxer. I love those.
No, I strike to blow my body and make it my slave, so that after I've preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize.
So what he does there is he's talking in Corinth, and that was all about the Grecian games. They were very big. The Olympiad was going on.
Wow.
And so he just is using the imagery of
Wow.
the boxers and the runners, and he just assigns it to being someone who's disciplined. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
But just to be very clear, he is talking about the crown of eternal life.
Yeah. Yeah. Which Revelation talks about being bestowed on those who enter into the kingdom realm, but then they take their crown and they cast them at the feet of, and that's where we get the band name Casting Crowns.
Oh,
It's a Christian band.
isn't it crows?
Casting Crows?
Isn't it crows?
Away from here, vile bird!
What?
No, it's Casting Crowns.
It's crows. Counting crows?
That's Counting Crows. Which is a stupid thing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Why? I didn't understand that last sentence. Like, he strikes a blow to his body, makes it his slave. So after he's preached to others, that's implying discipline.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all that discipline.
Okay.
All right.
Well, see you next time.
Bye.